Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I wanted to bring this to you and give you some thoughts that kind of were bouncing around my head as I was answering some comments about the college thing. Well, I'm a retired teacher, okay? And so I have a strong belief in education. The problem we have nowadays is that people don't understand what makes an education. And just because you go to a certain college, doesn't make you necessarily the most educated person in the world. Now, there are different kinds of education, in my opinion. And having a college degree is one type of education. But there are a lot of people who are very educated in other ways. If you have a CEO and he can be the most incredible CEO of one of the largest businesses in the world, and yet when his car doesn't work, he's at the mercy of a mechanic. So we have built a society these days where we tend to determine if somebody is better as a person if they went to some of these highfalutin schools, and that they're less of a person if they don't have a college degree at all. Well, I think that's kind of crazy because I know a lot of people who do trades, and I think that we have a very important need in the United States for trades. I mean, a lot of schools in Indiana were doing away with their shop or industrial arts programs. And yet, if that happens, what happens to all of these kids who may not be the best in math, but boy, you put them into building something and they are geniuses? These are the kids that we really need to foster something in. And unfortunately, I think we've been through the last several years, and I don't want to say this is just Obama, but there's been this big push for everyone needs to go to college. I just don't think that's true. I don't think everybody should go to college because college is not for everyone. Now, I have a brother who is excellent at doing, like, he can come up with drawings of different buildings or whatever. He got a draftsman degree. He didn't get into architecture, so he's not technically an architect, but he was the guy that would put out the plans and then the architect would come through and just sign it kind of thing. So I'm not taking anything away from architects. Architects have certain skill sets. A draftsman had certain skill sets. And that brother's doing very well right now. He just got accepted to have a booth at the NRA convention in Indianapolis. So if you're going to be there, you need to go look for him. He sells steel targets, and they're really cool because they have different parts to them. So they're interchangeable and you can set them out, and they're extremely durable because he's kind of a gun aficionado himself. So he really enjoys coming up with different kinds of targets, and that's his skill set. That's a great skill set to have. Like I said, I have a friend who is in my writers group. He's a mechanic, and he's really good at being a mechanic. Well, those are things that everybody needs. The comment that kind of sparked this was about waitresses. I didn't want to imply from my liking the one comment that I thought waitresses were not smart. That's not true at all, because you have to have some incredible skills to be a good waitress. And I could not do that. That's not a skill I have. I could not fix cars, okay? That's not a skill I have either. But you put me on a computer and usually I can troubleshoot a lot of things, and I have a little bit of skill in that respect. And so everybody has different job skills, and the idea that we need to push everyone into college, I think, is a trap that was being set up. Especially during the Obama administration, there was an extreme push for that. Well, let's examine for just a minute what happens when kids get put into a college. So a person who does well with academics, they're going to go to the college and they probably will do very well, and that's not a problem. But there are a lot of kids that are getting pushed into colleges who really shouldn't be there. They should instead take that money and invest it in a trade school because they're good with trades. And usually you can get a degree in a couple years, and it can be something that's very important for you to know how to do. I have one former student who went and became a baker. I mean, that was what she enjoyed doing, and that was what she went to school for. Great. I think it's wonderful. She was not really strong academically, and that was not her passion. So I have no problems with people going and doing different things, and I don't weigh people's value by what kind of job they do. I really don't. Because my father's job was one of those jobs that maybe you know Mike Rowe that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. He used to do a show called Dirty Jobs. One of those was my dad's job because my dad was a renderer. And for those of you who don't know what a renderer does, they pick up farmers' dead animals, or they go to slaughterhouses and pick up the parts of the cow that's not edible, or the pig or whatever that's not edible, and they take those parts, they basically put them in a big pressure cooker type thing, and it cooks them down, and then they dry it, and it comes out as a meal. It's called meat scrap. And that meat scrap then is when you get pet food and things like that, it's the meat byproducts. That's what you get. So I know for some people, they just think that's a horrible job. And believe me, I grew up with it. And I know there are a lot of people who look down their nose at he and his two brothers because my dad and his two brothers ran this. But there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's a service. And I can tell you that when he and his brothers retired, wow, there were a lot of farmers in the area that were in serious trouble because what do they do? You know, if they have a horse die, what do you do? And you have to bury it. I mean, it just really made things harder for them. When the police used to find deer that were hid on the road, because we do live in kind of a rural community, what were they going to do with them? The same thing. I mean, it brought a lot of problems on to the community after the service was gone. And that's something that I think we have to keep in mind, that there are a lot of service things that are very important to keep our communities going. And that doesn't make somebody a lesser person or a bigger person. I was no better person going to college than I was when I worked at the plant. Yes, I did. I had little picky jobs where I'd pick up dirty gloves and things that were smaller jobs. Like one summer, the local high school freezer went out and they didn't discover it for a few days because school was not in session. And yeah, it all went bad. I had the job of taking everything out of the packages because they couldn't run the packages through the machinery. So, there are things like that. It was not a great job. It was a kind of stinky job. I didn't like it. It didn't go well with me. But for some people, that was fine. It didn't bother them. They felt like they were doing a service, which they definitely were. And we had a lot of people that worked in that for long periods of time. Some of them retired, after many years of working there. So I understand what Mike Rowe is doing with this Mike Rowe Works Foundation. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I wanted to bring this out because it fits in with this whole idea of colleges. He's out promoting the idea that it's okay to be in a trade. It's okay to do some of those dirty jobs that need to be done. But society tends to look down our nose at them. And that's what we really have to address. We have to stop looking at people and say, well, just because they went to a certain school or they went to college even or got a degree, that makes them better than somebody who works on cars. It's absolutely ridiculous. People's worth should not be settled on what they do for a living. I'm a firm believer that your self-worth has to be connected to something more stable, and that is the God who created you. But that's my personal belief, and I know some of you may not agree with that, but that's what I believe, because as long as your value is rooted in the God who created you, it's never going to change. He's the one that determines your worth. And since he never changes, it never changes. And that's what makes it so wonderful and freeing, in my opinion, as a Christian. But with this, we really have to look at education differently. Because, as I was saying, I think in some ways this was a trap that was set for young people. And there are two parts to that. First, we know that there's indoctrination going on in colleges today. It is a liberal indoctrination. When kids come out of college, they are much more liberal than they went in, okay? They're told things that are not necessarily true, and this is why we're having issues right now with so many young people embracing socialism. Because they have been told that's good, capitalism bad, socialism good. And that's part of the problem we're having today. So I think maybe that's one of the reasons why there was such a big push to get kids into college. Because if you got them into college, then they would become liberal and they would end up voting Democrat, right? Now, I think there's also another aspect to it. And that is, if they could get these kids into college and build up this huge debt from going to college. And of course, you can't just go to a local college. You need to go to one of the more expensive colleges. And if you go there, you'll get so much better of an education. Now, I'm not saying that some of the more expensive colleges don't give a better education, but I think that you can get a pretty solid education from most state schools. It just boils down to how much you are willing to put into it, because that's where you'll get your education. And especially now with everything online that there are, there's all kinds of classes you can take. There are videos you can watch. You can learn so much online that some colleges, I believe Harvard, a few months ago, I heard that they were having some free classes online that you could even take. And some colleges are doing that, where they're offering free classes. You can do a lot of work like that to learn so many things, to achieve more and to get better skills. And it's all for free. I know that our local library has classes that you can take. I can take up to 5 classes every year on different subjects, whatever I choose, and it costs me nothing because I have a library card. So there are lots of opportunities out there to do these kinds of things. So not only are they being indoctrinated, but they're building up this debt. Then when they get out, that debt allows the government to control them. Because then if the government says, well, if you do this and this and this, then you'll have your debt reduced or eliminated. Vote for us, and we will get your debt eliminated. I mean, it's a huge thing when these kids get out of college and they've got thousands of dollars of debt, tens of thousands of dollars of debt. What are they going to do when somebody comes to them and says, we can get rid of that, just vote for us, we'll do it? See, it's a trap. And I think this is a trap that's been set up. Like I said, there's 2 parts to it, getting the indoctrination first, but also this debt trap. And that's a huge thing with these kids. Now, I was very fortunate because my parents did have enough that they could pay for my schooling. And because I also worked, I not only worked during the summer, but I also worked for a professor. So I was earning money too to help with it. And, it was just very fortunate that I was in that situation. Not everybody is, but this is the situation we have in our culture right now, that we're pushing these kids into college degrees that they don't necessarily need. Some people need them, but for other jobs, you really don't need a college degree. You don't need a college degree to be a waitress. And that says nothing about waitresses. It just says that job does not need that. And it's okay. You need other skills. And you don't need a college degree to work in factories. But we need people in factories, and it takes certain skills to work there. So it's not that there's more or less. It's not that somebody is better or worse, higher level or lower level. That's the problem we have. We shouldn't look at people according to what college they went to, what degree they have. That is not as important as what actual skills they have. If they're doing some job that they really are good at, they're working at something that they enjoy, that's important too. Because having a job that you don't like is miserable. It really is. And I was raised with the kind of work ethic where you work. That's just what you do. So even when I was working for my dad, the conditions were not pleasant, which was pretty much a lot of the time. I still never felt that I was doing a low job, because I wasn't. I was doing a job. And that's what we have to start instilling in our kids, that what job you're working at is less important than who you are as a person and how you're doing that job. That's what's more important. You're doing your best for your employer. And for me, that's what my parents instilled in me, that I should take every job and treat it the same, whether it was a secretary or if it was picking up maggoty gloves or if it was unpackaging really, really stinky food. I mean, some of them I liked more than others, and there were things about teaching that I didn't like. I really loved teaching, and I liked preparing. I was really good at that kind of thing, and making up activities for the kids to do so they could learn the languages better. I loved doing that. But, grading papers, not one of my favorite things, and they're very time consuming. So there were other aspects, going to meetings and all the piddly little stuff we had to do as teachers, administrative type stuff. I didn't care for that, but that was part of the job. And so you look at your job, not just one aspect of it, but you look at the whole, and it really has less to do with the job itself than your attitude in doing the job. And I think with this, Mike Rowe here, I don't know if you're familiar with him at all, but he does have a YouTube channel that I find quite enjoyable here. His Mike Rowe channel, he has 121,000 subscribers at this point. And he has some amusing talks that he does. They're pretty funny. Now, I haven't seen these, the pledges here. I haven't seen those. But he likes, a lot of times, he does these very interesting reads. It's like he's telling you a story, and they're very interesting. He just started doing this where he's sitting there. I kind of like the ones where, his letters from Mother, those are hysterical. You really should listen to those. And this one, the funeral home gig, pretty funny. So he does have some funny stuff. I really enjoy listening to him. He actually reminds me a lot of a pastor friend I used to work with, because he was a contractor, but he also was a pastor. And so they have a lot of similar attitudes, and they kind of sound alike and look alike. So it's kind of weird when I watch him, but I really enjoy his attitude towards the working man. And that's something that he has put his time into. So he created this organization that allows him to give scholarships for trade schools. And that, America's declared war on work, and the casualties are all around us. And they've been doing this. They started in 2008. They've had over $5 million in scholarships and over 1,000 recipients. They've encouraged, 15 plus skilled trades supported. They've reached in all 50 states. And how many whiners rewarded? 0. I like that. And so he doesn't pull any punches. And when he's talking about it, he's talking about the work ethic, skill in work, and that you really do need to come at your work with a good attitude and be there, show up, and work hard. And that's the kind of workforce we need, and we're losing out on. We're getting less and less like that. So many employers want to have more workers, but they're finding that the workers they're getting are just not reliable. And that's a big part of it. So, see, America's lending money it doesn't have to kids who can't pay it back to train them for jobs that no longer exist. That's nuts. That's pretty much the whole idea behind this organization. And again, if you've never heard of it, you really need to look into it. I'll leave the link down below just like usual. And I think it's a wonderful idea that he's doing here. He's been before Congress before. I heard him speak in a hearing where he was talking about the whole job problem, which we have jobs now because of Trump, but a lot of employers are having difficulty filling them because, again, they're not finding qualified people, or they're finding people that have degrees, but they don't have the real education. So this is what I wanted to share with you. I think that this kind of thing is something we need to emphasize more. And it's not that I'm against colleges. Go to college. If you are an academic oriented person, go to college. If that's the kind of thing where you need to go and get those skills, do it. But get the skill. Don't have your parents pay to get you in and then have somebody else do the work for you. You need to actually learn things, because it's from learning things that you're going to be able to not just take what you've learned, but you'll be able to synthesize it with what you know from life, and you'll bring in other thoughts and everything so that you can put them together into more knowledge and build something even greater than what you were in the first place. And so I'm strong on education. I am just not happy with the way that our society looks at things right now when it comes to education. We see it as something separate and different instead of looking at people that are doing great jobs in the trade industry. We need different kinds of jobs. Now, for those who may not read the Bible, there is in the Bible an analogy that talks about us being like a body, okay? What if you had a body and everything in the body was an ear? I mean, that's not a body. A body is made up of all different parts, and all the parts work together. And it's that uniqueness of all the individual parts, and then they come together. That's what makes the body work, and it functions well when that is happening. And that's one of the things that we need to see happen with America. We need to stop looking down our nose at people that have a job we don't think is worthy or successful. You know, maybe we need to redefine success, because success is not always having some high-paying job where you end up getting ulcers and you get divorced because too much stress and not enough time at home with your family, and that's not success. So we need to think as a country about redefining what success is. Success is not always having the biggest house on the block. It's not always having the fanciest cars. It's not always having 3 or 4 homes somewhere. You know, that's not what real success is. So if we redefine success, if we redefine what education is, I think we'll see that our country will grow much faster. And as a body of Americans, we'll start to come together and our country will function much better, because that's how a body works. When the body acknowledges the importance of all these different parts and how they all need to work together, that's when we become strong, and that's when we can really become the best we can be. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I know it's just my thoughts and everything, but I did want to share this website with you. I think he's doing a great job here, and that it's necessary. We need to get the trades back in our high schools, and we need to remember that people that are doing what we call regular jobs or whatever, I don't even know how to think about it because I don't see it that way. Somebody's a clerk at a store. That's important. Somebody's in a factory putting things together. Somebody is carrying my mail. Those are all extremely important, and I don't see them as one being better than something else. I see them all as important. Just like your finger is important, your toe's important. You know, even the parts of your body you can't see, all the innards, they're important. So they all work together, and that's what we need to remember. That's true diversity, when you can see that people are different, but yet we can all work together. So that's what I've got for you today. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I will see you all later.